This is a 14-year-old male patient with a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis. This patient was diagnosed around August of last year, and they were suffering for a few months. They had bloody stools. Initially, they had a stool test, and I didn't write it down here, but they didn't detect any abnormal microorganisms, although the test that most doctors do is not as comprehensive as the GI map test, which is the one that I usually order and the one that I ordered for this patient. He had a colonoscopy and EGD. They found his colon was inflamed. At one point he went into remission, which is promising that this could be resolved. He went in remission for 2 weeks, but symptoms came back since. He was diagnosed in August of last year. He's been to the hospital 4 times. He's tried steroids, tried mesalamine, didn't help. Steroids helped for the first round, but they stopped working after that. Currently is on infliximab, and he has, they're trying to get the infliximab to be effective for 4 weeks, but he's finding that around week 3 after the injection, he's starting to have symptoms coming back. Now, his diet, he said, is mostly whole food. His symptoms right now, he's not in a flare-up right now, but when he is in the worst of the worst, he's going to have bowel movements up to 12 per day of loose watery stools. But like I said, he's not currently in a flare. Right now, he's not having any fatigue. He's not having any pain right now. And he doesn't know of any food sensitivities. Objectively, back in March, he had a stool calprotectin test, and the value was 4,020, which is very high. And with inflammatory bowel disease, one of the tests that we use to monitor the condition and to help with the diagnosis is the calprotectin stool test. Here is the results of his GI map test. Let's run through this real quick. So the first page, we're looking at pathogens. Were any pathogens detected on his test? And the answer is no. So these are the microorganisms that are known to cause some major issues: bloody diarrhea, severe diarrhea, and other issues. Now, when you see here, it says below less than DL. This less than DL means that it's below the detectable limits of the test. So none of these were elevated. No detectable H. pylori, and this is a bacteria. I usually see a lot of H. pylori come up on the GI map test. A lot of people have it. Probably about 50% of people have H. pylori, but it doesn't typically cause issues in everybody who has it. In this case, it was not detected. And then we're going to take a look at the commensal or keystone species of bacteria. These are the organisms that should be there. They should be in a good balance, and these are the ones that typically are your helpers. They kind of help out with your immune system. They help to keep things in balance, because inside of your colon microbiome is an ecology. It's an ecological environment, and these organisms are fighting for territory. They're fighting for dominance. And if you end up with a situation where a lot of your friendly bacteria species are low, then it sets up a opportunity for some species of bacteria, fungus to grow. Their populations will grow, and they will take over the environment, changing conditions and blocking out the ability of some helpful organisms to be able to colonize your gut, and you end up having digestive problems. In this case, he is low. He is low on many beneficial species, and Akkermansia mucinifera below the detectable limits, not even there. Faecalbacterium prausnitzii, same story, below the detectable limits, not there. Now, these two organisms are very helpful. Akkermansia actually eats the protective lining of your gut, which forces your body to grow that lining thicker, which helps with protection of the lining of the gut. So someone who has leaky gut and they have low akkermansia, giving them akkermansia may help with the leaky gut. Same story for the Faecalbacterium brusnitzii. If that one's low, this is a major butyrate producing bacteria. Butyrate is a short chain fatty acid produced by this species and other species of gut bacteria that helps with inflammation and other things. So if he's lacking Faecalbacterium brusnitzii, then he is not getting enough butyrate production probably, and the pH of the stool, of the environment, could be affected, which helps the growth of some organisms that you don't want to be there, which we'll see in a minute. And one more thing on this commensal / keystone bacteria is that his Firmicutes to Bacteroidetes ratio is high. Now, there seems to be a correlation that when this ratio is low, we see a healthier gut microbiome and healthier metabolism overall. When this ratio is high, we see issues with metabolism and in general an unhealthy or less healthy person than someone who has a ratio below 1. This is not the gospel. This is just a pattern that has been observed. So something's going on here. Even before, when I saw this patient on the first visit, I assumed that maybe he was having low diversity of species in his gut. So right off the bat, I started him on a very high colony forming unit, CFU, probiotic, to start to add in some species of Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus to change the environment of the digestive tract. Now, Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium, they don't generally stick around inside of the digestive tract, and these are the species we see most often in probiotics. So technically, when you're taking these probiotics, you're just going to be pooping them out after about 24 to 48 hours, but they are beneficial because while they are passing through, they're changing the pH, they're changing conditions in the digestive tract that are more suitable to help other beneficial species to thrive. Much like the rainforest. If you have a species in the rainforest that is producing a food source for other species, then those other species are going to benefit as well. Moving on, we are checking out the opportunistic species of bacteria. Opportunistic bacteria in the gut are those species that they're normally present in small amounts, but their populations are kept in check by other microorganisms. If these organisms if their population gets out of control, they get a bloom, they have no competition, they're going to bloom, and then it sets up a situation where you can have some extra inflammation, have an extra immune reaction, have some digestive issues. In this patient's case, Bacillus species was elevated, and when you look at these, they're written in scientific notation. This is 1.42 times 10 to the 7th power. So when we're making an assessment, we're really looking at the power. To the 7th power, this is 1 magnitude higher than the reference range. So 10 times higher than the reference range, about. Enterococcus species faecalis was elevated 2 magnitudes higher, so 100 times higher than the reference range. On his treatment plan, I wrote down some specifics that we know about these species here. Let me see if I could find it here. Elevated Enterococcus. This could point to digestive issues like constipation or SIBO. He had elevations in Streptococcus, which is mainly on the skin. So you have species of Streptococcus that live around your mouth. And when you eat your food, They go down into your gut, into your stomach, where they should die. The stomach acid should kill them, but if they're getting high and if they're getting in there in too high in numbers, or maybe you're not chewing your food enough or not producing enough stomach acid or your own digestive enzymes, some of these skin organisms can survive and go into the small intestine, and the immune system recognizes them and sends out the guard as if there's some type of organism that is trying to get into a barrier layer, meaning your skin is a barrier and your gut is a barrier. So people who have eczema, they may have issues with stomach acid production or not producing enough stomach enzymes, or staph and strep are surviving and just colonizing their gut in too high in numbers, causing an immune reaction and causing skin issues. In this patient, he doesn't really have skin issues. He just has the digestive issues, and streptococcus was just one magnitude higher, so about 10 times higher than it should have been. Here is where the meat and potatoes is for this patient. This is probably what sent this patient off into this spiral, because the patient doesn't really have a family history of inflammatory bowel disease. And just so you know, inflammatory bowel disease is either Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. So inflammatory bowel disease is an umbrella term for those two conditions. He was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis because he had blood in his stool. But I would bet that at some point, probably back when this started, he maybe ate a piece of contaminated food that had high amounts of probably Proteus. Could have been Klebsiella too. You see his Klebsiella when it says species, when it says SPP, this is telling you that it's several different species of Klebsiella, and then they have specifically the pneumoniae species was elevated too. So this only tests for like a broad group of organisms in the genus of Klebsiella, and then they actually specifically test for Klebsiella pneumoniae, which both were very high. Klebsiella species was 3 magnitudes higher, so 1,000 times higher than it should have been. Klebsiella was 100 times higher than it should have been, Klebsiella pneumoniae. And then down here we see Proteus species. This is like 6 magnitudes higher than it should be. This Proteus is out of control. Now, I don't know if initially this was high or if this is a result of this patient taking several different types of antibiotics. You know, when you take antibiotics, it's going to kill the species that are affected by the antibiotic, but that's going to leave you with other species who are resistant to the antibiotic. They're partying. There's no competition anymore. Their populations are going to boom. So maybe this is a result of that, but I have seen many patients with digestive issues, watery diarrhea, with elevations of Proteus. So I'd be willing to bet that this organism was the initial cause of this patient's issues, and it is just holding on. Maybe one of these species in the Proteus genus had some type of a mutation which gave them an advantage over other organisms, and they were just holding on. These are gram-negative bacteria known to produce things called endotoxins, also known as lipopolysaccharides. So gram-negative bacteria produce lipopolysaccharides, which can cause irritation in the digestive tract. And in extreme cases, if these get into the bloodstream, meaning you actually have a gram-negative infection in your bloodstream, this is like severe case, then if these organisms have a die-off rapidly in the bloodstream, say you take a strong antibiotic, all their cell membranes are going to bust open. They're going to release tons of this lipopolysaccharides, and someone could go into septic shock. This is very, very well studied. So when you're having low levels of lipopolysaccharides produced in the gut, It's going to cause irritation. And what's the gut going to do? It's going to flush them out. So it's going to pump water into the digestive tract. You're going to get watery diarrhea. You're going to be having bowel movements 12 times a day. It's going to be very, very uncomfortable. So the crux of the matter here is probably this Proteus species. Nothing else here was elevated. None of these, no yeast species were detected, no viruses, no protozoa. These are single-celled organisms that are parasites, and then no worms were detected. Now, this patient had a lot of blood in his stool, which is, it's probably because there's just chronic inflammation going on. The immune system is just trying to fight these Proteus and Klebsiella, and it's just causing damage to the lining of the gut to the point where he's bleeding. He's having blood loss. And quite frankly, this patient is also iron deficient, anemic, and I put him on you'll see when I show you his plan, I put him on a form of iron that doesn't cause digestive issues like the ferrous gluconate or ferrous fumarate. Eosinophil activation protein was elevated. This is just a sign that there's inflammation present related to this immune mechanism. Now, surprisingly, this patient's calprotectin was 27. Now, we are in July of 2024. The patient said he was tested back in March of 2024, which is just a few months ago, and his calprotectin was 4020, which is super high. Now it's back to normal. So it's like, is this diagnosis of ulcerative colitis really his diagnosis? Meaning, does this child have to suffer the rest of his life with an autoimmune condition? Or is this something treatable? Is this just a result of an imbalance in gut microorganisms? This is the area where I'm going to treat the patient. We are going to make sure that his gut microbiome is as healthy as possible so that he will be colonized with good bacteria, which could help to lower the numbers of the Proteus and the Klebsiella, and hopefully help with his symptoms for good. For good. This usually when you get the gut microbiome back in order, this is a permanent or semi-permanent fix to the issue. Now, the gut microbiome is fluid. It changes over time, but we always want to make it change for the good, and that's why you do the healthy lifestyle choices, which we'll talk about in the plan. Now, one last thing on here is they actually add in if there's any resistance, if they find any genes that are associated with resistance to any antibiotics, they'll note them here, and he didn't have any of those. All right, let's hop back into the treatment plan. I'll let you know what we're gonna do for this guy. Nutrition-wise, the last visit, I already gave him my nutrition guide, which is basically a whole food diet. I want him to track everything he eats. There's the app that I use is MyNet Diary. There's other ones out there. I like MyNet Diary just because I got used to using it. But I want him to track everything he eats and also note down any symptoms he feels every single day, so we could see if there's any pattern related to any food that he's eating. Usually when you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria, it's usually propagated by what you're eating, and if you're overeating, that's an issue. Or if you're eating too much refined flours and refined starches, then there's a chance that you're not going to be absorbing all those, and then those will pass on into the large intestine and start to feed some of these unfavorable species of microbes. So anytime you're having any digestive issues, it's always a good idea to really cut down on the refined flours and refined starches, even refined like beans and stuff too. You know, sometimes they'll like make pasta out of beans. They grind them all down, anything that they've pre-grinded down that's a starchy food, kind of reduce, or even frankly for a couple weeks maybe don't eat any of those, and that may help by not feeding the populations of bacteria that have gotten out of control. So really, when he had his first visit, we added on Therabiotic Complete Powder, the powder form of this product by Claire Labs, and they changed their name to SFI. This product in half a teaspoon, see if I can remember this. I'll have to look it up. Let's take a look at it here. Therabiotic Complete Powder. Therabiotic Complete Powder. Yeah, it's a little more expensive, but it's more potent. In a quarter teaspoon, it's 100 billion CFUs. Yeah, probiotic blend. 100 billion CFUs in a quarter teaspoon. This patient, where'd it go? This patient, just from the get-go, when he first came in, without even doing any testing, I prescribed a half a teaspoon twice a day. So this is 400 billion CFU, colony-forming units per day. This is to ensure that these organisms are going to survive the acid in the stomach so that they will colonize, or that they will pass through and temporarily colonize the colon to help fight the battle there. So hopefully just with that, because it takes about 2 weeks to get the results of the GI map test back. Hopefully with just starting that, he has seen some improvement, or at least no relapse. It's going to be kind of tough with him because he's taken the infliximab, so we don't know, is it the infliximab that's helping, or is it this treatment plan? Now, the infliximab historically for him has only been helping for like about 3 weeks max. So if we're going periods over 3 weeks with my treatment plan, we're going to have him discuss with the other prescribing doctor to get off of the infliximab, and hopefully he can maintain with just lifestyle. On the first visit, I also added Biotigen, which is a prebiotic, and that's also by they changed their name, SFI. And then Ferrocal. Ferrocal has iron bisglycinate chelate. Iron bisglycinate chelate is a better form of iron to take in a supplement because it doesn't cause the digestive issues associated with other forms. In this case, we had him do the Ferrocal, and I don't have people stay on that for more than 3 months. So we're going to recheck that one, recheck his iron in 3 months, see if that's improved. And what I added in here was the Pendulum brand Akkermansia. Remember on the GI map, this Akkermansia was low. Well, about 2 years ago, a company, Pendulum, was able to stabilize this anaerobic bacteria called Akkermansia mucinifila, and they were able to put it into a supplement form so that it could be taken by people. And I had another patient take this where they were low. We did the GI map. They were low on Akkermansia. We gave them the product, and when we retested about 3 months later, their Akkermansia was up to normal. So I know at least in that one patient, from my experience, it took the organism actually colonized. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case for this guy. We need to get this Akkermansia in him. As of now, in 2024, they haven't stabilized this species of Faecobacterium prausnitzii in a supplement form. It's hard to manufacture most of the microorganisms that are actually live their whole and stay inside of the gut microbiome, because they are anaerobic, meaning they could only survive in an environment that has no oxygen, which is what it's like inside of your gut. The minute a molecule of oxygen hits these organisms, it kills them. So it's very hard to manufacture these things. So as of yet, this Faecobacterium prausnitzii has not been manufactured. However, the byproduct produced by Faecobacterium prausnitzii, one of the major byproducts is the short-chain fatty acid, butyrate. So we're adding butyrate sodium into the treatment plan. This is by Body Bio. All the supplements that I recommend for my patients can be found on our full script partner. Links down below in the description. These are the only things we're doing for this guy, because he's already on 3 different antibiotics, which frankly are probably causing more problems than helping. So I didn't add any other natural antimicrobials into there. My goal is to get this kiddo's gut microbiome in such good shape that he has a huge diversity of species, so that these other beneficial species could help to lower the number of Proteus and Klebsiella and get this guy back in shape. That's all for today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this was helpful and educational. If you like this video, I make lots of these ones about actual real patients where I make treatment plans for them. So subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.